Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there, and a good morning at you. My God, it's been a long time. Nice to be back in the saddle. And hello to all of you in this new year, 2025. Oh boy. You know, normally on a Monday, I'm always boying about how much has happened in the last 3 days. And here I've been gone for what seems like a few weeks, and obviously a lot of stuff. And it will only continue apace. God help us all. I couldn't help but note the date. It's one of those dates, and I'm bad at dates, but it's one of those dates that will always stick in my head. January 6th. Wow. January 6th. So most of us didn't know from January 6th until, of course, the soon-to-be again President Donald Trump instigated an insurrection and an attempt to overtake the business of the United States government on that date, trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, something that had never happened before in the country's history. And to think that the American people turned around and put him back in the White House is something that I will never comprehend, ever, nor forgive. And I'm not saying that we who opposed him are not also culpable in the outcome, because obviously we lost. We failed. But today at 1 o'clock, the Vice President of the United States, as happened on that fateful day, will oversee the counting and certification of the electoral votes and solidify the victory of Donald J. Trump. This time, we can assume that all will go as planned, that the Vice President, who happens, of course, to be the losing candidate, will do her responsibility and certify the election for the man who defeated her. She will do what the Vice President then, Mike Pence, did. She will do her duty. For that, of course, he ended up running for his life from the chamber. And as I said before, for as long as I have left to live, I will never comprehend how the American people not only failed to hold Trump responsible for what happened that horrible day, but that they, in fact, rewarded him. Extraordinary. And since last I've been with you, another president has made news simply by dying. That would be Jimmy Carter. And the contrast cannot help but scream out as we read of him, his presidency, his life. The contrast between this man, Jimmy Carter, a man of extraordinary good character, who managed to win elections and maintain good character throughout. Couldn't play the game very well, but somehow then the American people liked what they saw. A man of character. It mattered. And I have been so taken with much of what's been written. I haven't read it all, nowhere near it. I, like many of you, just don't find myself reading as much as I used to about the news because, well, life is short and I don't want to spend it in a fetal position. But Jimmy Carter is a man whose life is worth spending time with and thinking about. And I've told you, I was so lucky to have, on 2 occasions, been in his company up close and personal. And I can only tell you that he was as good, kind, and authentic a man as you could hope to ever meet. Clearly, he was who he was. I don't think artifice was something that he was capable of. He was incapable of lying. His mother, who was quite a character, Miss Lillian, his mother noted his incapacity to lie. I know George Washington gets the historic presidential record on being truthful. I cannot tell a lie. Chopping down the cherry tree, which we don't know if that ever in fact happened. But Jimmy apparently literally could not tell a lie. How the hell he got elected is beyond me. Because politics is the kind of game, as we know, where you tell the truth, you're good and gone. I'm looking around for this. There's somewhere I pulled out a quote of what Miss Lillian had said about Jimmy not ever lying. Oh, here it is. She was being interviewed. This would be 1976. It was during his campaign, 1976. And the New York Times was interviewing her at Carter headquarters, and she's sitting in a rocking chair. And she told the Times reporter, someone asked me the other day, do I ever tell a lie? And I said, yeah, sure. Got to make up for Jimmy. cute. And then this wonderful woman, who, by the way, grew up in the Deep South at a time of Jim Crow and such racism and never, ever tolerated it, was outspoken against it. She was something. And she raised 4 children who weren't tainted by the racism of their culture. And after the inauguration, another reporter said to her, "Miss Lillian, aren't you proud of your son?" And she said, "Which one?" And I just think they're about as wonderful people as you'd ever want to know. And wow. She went to Miss Lillian went to Studio 54, the hot spot in New York City in the 70s, in the company of Andy Warhol. Just to put a little Pittsburgh spin on it here. Yeah, Miss Lillian and Andy Warhol made the scene at a party um, in 1977, and he later he painted her portrait. Can't imagine an odder couple than that. Uh, yeah, I just what fine people, and there's something. The fact that Donald Trump is going to the funeral, and that man will have to sit through the eulogies. We'll have to listen to what is said. But of course, what am I even saying? I'm thinking to myself, maybe he will feel a moment of of no, he won't feel like somehow I wish I were better than I am. Of course he won't. Of course he won't. He'll listen to these stories about Carter and he'll think, what a loser. That's what he'll think. What a loser. Carter, like the only president in my memory who didn't, try to cash in afterwards. Didn't go on the speaking circuit, right? He didn't. He didn't do any of that crap. Just went back to his house in Plains and then decided to, keep millions of people in poor countries from dying of horrible diseases that we in rich countries don't even know about. No, he just went on to keep doing good work. My God. I'm glad, though, that Trump has to sit through it. Listen to what the life of a truly great man sounds like. And the fact that the man that Carter defeated to win his single term in office, Jerry Ford, the fact that Jerry Ford and he became truly good friends. Can you imagine? Can you imagine somebody like Trump befriending the person he defeated or who defeated him? Can you imagine? I mean, they got tight. And in fact, Ford asked Carter if he would give the eulogy at his funeral. And Jimmy Carter did. Speaking of presidential funerals, they actually pledged to each other because they didn't know who was going to go first, but they both agreed they would do the eulogy for the other. And it was Carter who delivered the eulogy, and wondrously, he began the eulogy for the man he had defeated with the first words he ever spoke as President of the United States at his inauguration. And it was this: for myself and for our nation, I want to thank my predecessor for all that he has done to heal our land. So, the first words coming into his presidency were not about himself. They were, in fact, to thank the man he had defeated. And words that, of course, applied when he gave that same man's eulogy. Again, imagine the man who will next take the oath of office saying such a thing. And then I was struck by Carter's last words as president. When he left the White House, he gave a farewell address. This would be January of '81, as Ronald Reagan was coming in. And he said, Carter said, I leave the White House and I once more take up the only title in our democracy superior to that of president, the title of citizen. And then he went on to show what a citizen should do. A remarkable man. And again, I think it is just fitting that we will be reminded of him in the days before our next president takes over. God Almighty. You can't find two more opposite examples of humanity. Okay, sorry. I just want to say this also about our outgoing president, Joe Biden. Biden, poor Biden. I disagree, and in this, I'm going up against all the elected officials I'm aware of in this state, and Biden and everybody. It seems I vehemently disagree with this blocking of Nippon Steel's bid to take over U.S. Steel. I think it's extraordinarily wrongheaded. And I'm glad to see, I don't know if they've got a shot in hell. I'm glad to see that Nippon Steel is suing in federal court. I trying to keep this effort alive. I mean, look, I don't pretend to know about, this kind of these big transactions that are about, geopolitics and domestic politics and something as important as steel production. Um, but I do know this, having lived in this place for almost 45 years now, that is the very heart of American steel, um, that we, America, has not invested in American steel. We've allowed the plants, US Steel has allowed the plants up and down the Monongahela to wither and die. It takes a lot of investment to re-rig them to work efficiently and in this current steelmaking age and competitively. And whether American workers are able to compete with Chinese workers and Japanese workers in this global marketplace, I don't know. I don't know. But it's quite clear that US Steel is going down. And they've been laying people off and shutting mills left and right ever since I got here. And if someone comes in and they're our ally, it's not China buying them with a really good offer, that so is beyond the offer of the American company that wanted to buy them. And they're saying they will keep the headquarters here in Pittsburgh. They will renovate these mills here. They will employ more people. How don't we take that? I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand it at all. And all of a sudden, this great concern about national security. What the if what the hell do we manufacture here now? I don't get it. I don't get it. And I'm protesting it. Just saying. Somebody can feel free to explain it to me, but I don't get it. Hey, did you see the oldest person in the world drop dead? It's always a shock, isn't it? Always saying the last thing you want. I don't know. I didn't see who's up next. But every time one of these people drops dead, then somebody else gets to be next in line to be the next person who will drop dead, momentarily. But this one, I only bring it up because I ended up laughing. Because this most recent world's oldest dead person is a woman in Japan, Tomiko Ituku. And I mean, she was on this earth before the Titanic even went down. And anyway, she died, 116, which is not, the one before her was 117, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. And 116. And the mayor of the town in which she lived, of course, made a speech, and the the report from the New York Times said that the mayor offered his deepest condolences and but did not give a cause. And that's when I must say, sitting here alone in the quiet of my own home, I let out a most unladylike guffaw. The New York Times said, did not list a cause. The cause is right in the headline, you idiots. She was 116. That's the cause. Gee. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes, sometimes people, yeah, whatever. Anyway, uh, I yawned through the Golden Globes last night. Did you watch them? I don't know what it. I don't. Never mind. Doesn't matter. Okay, the other story that I feel like I have to. Uh-oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait, before I move on from this date of January 6th, by the way, I feel for Kamala Harris today. Can you imagine? Do you remember before the election, somebody had asked, well, what happens if she wins and then she's got to like oversee the counting of the votes and won't the Republicans go berserk because she's like, the I mean, they'll just scream that it's, well, they would have screamed anyway if she'd won. Um, no, the only reason we have a peaceful transfer this time and there was no rigged election is, of course, because the Republican candidate won. It's only rigged when they lose. But for her to have to not only lose to this vile being, but to then, yeah, be the responsible, honorable official who signs off on it in a public way is really, whoa. So anyway, I think it was the what? Oh, Margaret. I thought you were talking about Kamala Harris. I realize you're talking about the 116-year-old. Margaret has said, "Oh, you didn't hear? She was hang gliding off the side of a Himalayan mountain, cause of death." I thought you. I never mind. Okay. So the New York Times today had this like a little bit of profiles of some of the January 6th Americans who stormed the U.S. Capitol, who have served and are probably going to be pardoned by Donald Trump for their exemplary exemplary behavior to the nation. Oh, excuse me, to him, which is of course more important than the nation. But one stood out. A guy, I'm looking at a picture of him. First of all, he stood out because he's black. And, you think, I don't remember a lot of black people in that crowd. But there were a few. And then you always think, well, that's some very mixed up black person. That's what I think. I don't know. But let me tell you about this guy. He is, whoa, his name is James Beeks. And he showed up in DC in 2021 to do his duty. to God and Donald Trump. And he showed up as a member of the Oath Keepers militia. See right there, I got some serious cognitive dissonance going on in my head because I don't understand any black person who'd be joining that, but what the hell. And here's what makes him even more bizarre. You know what? These people had jobs and stuff, right? So you know what his job was? He was a Broadway performer. I mean, not just a Broadway performer. You know how many actors and actresses would like die to say I was on Broadway? He was on Broadway 5 times on a Broadway stage. And the last production he was in was for the 50th anniversary production of Jesus Christ Superstar. And guess who this January 6th perpetrator, James Beeks, was on stage in Jesus Christ Superstar being? He played Judas. You can't make it up. All right. I just had to let you know that because that's mind blowing. Oh, I got a caller. Jeez, how'd that happen? Let's see. Hello.
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 Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, we're the second largest manufacturer besides China, so I guess we're not too bad.
Okay, in steel, you're
in
saying.
the world.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
No, in manufacturing. All of manufacturing.
Really? Us?
So,
okay.
Yeah, that's what it says. Yeah, it's chemicals. I forget. But yeah. So
Okay.
I'm like you. I don't know about that deal either. I kind of think maybe you should have taken it too. I don't know.
Well, it ain't over
yet. I just can't wait here. I just can't wait because the Republicans are going to really help the middle class here. They're going to have a big bill, and the sun's going to shine every day. It's going to be beautiful. Everything's going to be wonderful. Yeah, right.
Well, okay. Sure.
We'll see. I'm so disgusted. But look, I don't know what to do,
Yeah, well, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to survive it. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and we should impeach him, too.
Oh, no, I'm sick of that. I don't want to.
No, you don't want to do that?
No, because it doesn't work. We can't get it done. There's no point in it if it's just theater. No, we can't get it done. They got more people in the Senate now it'll never happen. He's home free, this son of a bitch.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. Yep. Oh man. I wouldn't have been on this. I never dreamed of this. Oh God. Oh well, I don't know. I'm all my mind's blown.
Yeah, well, right.
Okay, we'll see.
Okay, bye. Appreciate the call. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to, living life is just filled with all kinds of incomprehensibles. There's no doubt about it. What shockaroos. Just roll with the punches, guys. I don't know what else to do. Yeah, roll with the punches. What? I'm sorry. Why am I laughing? I don't know. I can't imagine. Jesus H. Well, let's see what else I got here. Oh, here's a cute story. I mean, it's just sort of an unusual story, and let me share it with you. Because one of the things that I've been thinking is, we all live our lives. And there's so much pleasure to derive from our lives in many ways, and I can't speak for any of you because I don't know your circumstances, but I'm willing to bet that for most of us, we are living better lives than 98% of the humans or who've ever lived on this earth. I doubt that any of us worry about starving to death or worry about shelter. I'm hoping that we all have a friend or two, or at least a furry animal, or that we take pleasure in nature. We have books and television that's good TV and stuff to say. I mean, we have so much stuff that can give us pleasure that I am, I just cannot wallow in what I don't have. And what I don't have, it has a lot to do with, of course, um, my sense of social justice and what others should obviously have, and how that's not happening, and how the world is so out of whack uh, with the rich. Again, the rich are insatiable. It's not that the poor are asking for much. It's that the rich cannot get enough. And they are always in a position to take it. And we're about to see that in spades. Um, so I wanted to tell you, I now take pleasure in stories like this, and I'm hoping that media will understand that a good thing it can do, besides being a watchdog, is to tell us about other people that are doing good stuff because it warms our hearts. Maybe you saw this story. It's about a woman. Her name's Betty Gordon. She's 94 years old. And I mean, and she lives in New York. Has had an interesting life up until now. She, in fact, she had a long romance with a guy named Frank Serpico. That name ring a bell? Yeah, that was the cop, the undercover cop played by, in the movie Serpico by Al Pacino. Yeah. So she didn't have, she had an affair not with Al Pacino, but with the real guy, Serpico. That's one of her claims to fame. She was also married at one point to a jazz saxophonist, for those of you who know jazz saxophonist, Hal McCusick. Um, in the 1990s, so she wouldn't have been a spring chicken in the 1990s if she's 94 now. She actually bought a dive bar in New York called the Stoned Crow. It's in Greenwich Village. And she'd run the bar and oversee the pool table, and she was a character. And and then things started getting a little not so great. She had to close the bar down in 2010. Her health began to go. She was hospitalized a number of times. She had congestive heart failure. She ended up selling her jewelry just to start paying for basic things. But as unhappy as she was feeling, now, so this is a woman living alone, 90, 93, 94. And she still, though, could see. she had this gift of perspective. So even though things were hard for her, she realized that there were a lot of other people who had a rougher row. And one was a guy who she had befriended who had gone to her bar. His name was, I'll find it here. His name was Ian Spence. And he was a lot younger than her. He was just 56 years old. But she really liked him. And he was spiraling down. She saw it when she still had the bar, but she kept in touch with him. And he was drinking too much. He was into all kinds of substance abuse. He was going down. And she kept thinking, what can I do to help him? She's selling her jewelry. It's not like she can help him with money. She's clearly there for him and letting him know she cares about him. And then she has this idea. She says, hey, Ian, I got a proposition. I've always wanted to write a children's book. I'm going to write it, but you've got to illustrate it. I'm not even going to attempt to do this thing if you're not going to do it with me. She did. He did. And the book, Phoebe the Cat and Her Curious Dog Dream, was published in July and shot up to #1 in multiple categories on Amazon. It ended up rising to number 57 of all books on the site eventually as things calmed down. Ian Spence, the illustrator, said, "My God, we were outselling Harry Potter at one point." Well, seeing success like that, others came calling on Ian Spence. And he now is buried in so many projects, people wanting his talent. And man, his life is back and it's humming. And he's sober. And he's not taking anti-anxiety meds anymore. And damn Betty Gordon, she says he is so creative and sober now, and all that marvelous talent of his came pouring out in the book. Seeing him like this is so heartwarming. She saved him. And now he's writing a book about her. And he's writing it in serialized comic form. And so most days, this 94-year-old woman and her 56-year-old friend spend a couple of hours together working on it. The first volume of it was published in November, and there was a reunion of sorts held with all the old crowd from the Stoned Crow at what is now the old Stone Crow, a different bar called the Pub Key. And she celebrated her 94th birthday there, and a lot of folks came to toast these two. And then an article in the Times led her to reconnecting with Frank Serpico. he got in touch with her, and she says she's heard from a lot of other old friends too. They celebrated Christmas together at her apartment. He gave her the new hardcover edition of the book that they had produced together, the one that she had written, and the one that saved his life. Isn't that a wonderful story? It's stories like that I want more of, because we have to be reminded that each of us has that capacity to reach out and help one another. Even if it's a smile. I'm not kidding you. I hate to get all corny on you, but a smile and a kind word, just to counter the negativity that so many seem to revel in. I think it's so important. And we can all do that. I want to take a moment to tip my hat to the Pulitzer Prize winning cartoonist for the Washington, who was with the Washington Post, Ann Telnis. I'm not sure again now. I don't know how any name is pronounced. Ann Telnis, whose work I loved, and who I'm sure you know had a cartoon she had wanted the paper to print spiked. They refused to because she was in it making fun of the man who owns the paper, the gazillionaire Jeff Bezos. And she quit. And you know, it's reminiscent of what happened to Rob Rogers here, because he ended up gone because of a political cartoon that the paper's owner, a Trump aficionado, refused to run. And, you know, it's always so interesting how censorship like that never works. It just never works. It has the opposite effect. When do these idiots, the censors, ever figure it out? Because she, of course, immediately announced what had happened and that she had left. And let me see, I have her post here. I can't, okay. She posted this. As an editorial cartoonist, my job is to hold powerful people and institutions accountable. For the first time, my editor prevented me from doing that critical job, so I have decided to leave the Post. I doubt my decision will cause much of a stir and that it will be dismissed because I'm just a cartoonist, but I will not stop holding truth to power through my cartooning because, as they say, democracy dies in darkness. Thank you for reading this. Now, democracy dies in darkness is, of course, the phrase that the Washington Post adopted to put on its masthead during the first Trump presidency, noting how important it was when would-be autocrats, people who want to squelch media are in power, how important the work of a newspaper can be, and how important for the survival of any democracy it is. So, how ironic. Democracy dies in darkness. And as Trump enters his second term, that paper that in the first term put that on its masthead has capitulated to him, which is what the cartoon, of course, was about. And the cartoon that they didn't want anyone to see is everywhere. I mean, people who never have picked up a Washington Post, my guess is, have seen it. Other cartoonists are doing similar themed cartoons to buttress it. And so a cartoon that would have just been another cartoon became huge because they tried to make sure we wouldn't see it. It's the way it always goes. Incredible. These are scary times. 'Tis true. All the more reason to be, like the 94-year-old woman. Never too late. She'd always wanted to write a book. 94. She decides, hey, I can do it and I'll get him to illustrate it. And then it turns into this unbelievable. Do you believe? Oops, there goes my mouse. Okay. So, all righty. Another, I love obits. There's another obit here I wanted to, oh no, Milton, don't tell me. I'm afraid to read it. Milton has sent me Trump's statement. Okay. Happy New Year, Lynn, Milton writes. All we need to know about the difference between America's past appreciation and value of leadership qualities and our present misguided disregard for personal integrity and honor in the person of the president can be quantified in the following Truth Social comment by Trump. He points out not only is his statement abhorrent, but it is untrue. Well, Milton. It goes without saying that if Trump wrote or said it, it's untrue. But I guess we do have to continue to still say it. Okay, so here's what the soon-to-be president has said. The Democrats are all giddy about our magnificent American flag potentially being at half-mast during my inauguration. They think it's so great and are so happy about it because in actuality, they don't love our country. They only think about themselves. Look at what they have done to our once great America over the past 4 years. It's a total mess. In any event, because of the death of President Jimmy Carter, the flag may, for the first time ever during an inauguration of a future president, be at half-mast. Nobody wants to see this, and no American can be happy about it. Let's see how it plays out. And then in all caps, make America great again. And what's not true in the statement is that in 1973, during Nixon's second inauguration, flags were at half staff, not half mast, half staff in honor of the death of Harry Truman. What a small, well, listen, let's not. It's really important. I was talking to a friend yesterday to not let this vile little personage and his constant neediness interrupt our lives or get in our heads. It's up to us if he lives in our heads. I have mostly and rather successfully evicted him. It's not that I don't talk of him, because I have in this last hour, but I don't let him live there like he was. Because, as I said, my life is precious to me. There are many things I can find pleasure in, and there is good to be done, and laughter to be had, and friends to be with. And no, I'm, it takes two to tango, and I ain't dancing with him anymore. Which is not to say I'm not in my peripheral vision keeping an eye on him. So there's that. Okay, real quickly, the obit. I never heard of this guy, but I got a kick out of his obituary. He's a baseball player, Lenny Randle. It looks like he played for just about every team. I don't know. He was. He's most famous for what? He did some really weird things. He was playing third base for the Mariners in 1981 when Amos Otis of the Kansas City Royals tapped a ground ball that trickled toward third. And it started started looking like it was going to head into fair territory. It was like right on the line. And damn if this guy, Lenny Randle, didn't drop to his hands and knees. He's almost lying on his stomach. And he's blowing on the ball. He's blowing on it, trying to get it to go foul. And in fact, the home plate umpire called it foul ball. Well, the Royals manager comes charging out of the, out, and the call was reversed, and the guy who'd hit this ball ends up on first base. And Randall later said, "Look, I wasn't blowing on it. I was talking to it. I was saying, please, come on, go foul, go foul. I did not blow on it. I used the power of suggestion." So he was a character. He played for the Washington Senators, the Texas Rangers, the Mets, the Yankees, the Cubs. Playing for the Mets in 1977 is the bottom of the sixth, Shea Stadium. It was a night game. The Cubs pitcher went into his windup, and then suddenly, as if a giant switch had been flicked off, the lights went out. It was total blackness. And Randall's at bat, and I thought, God, what? I thought God was calling me. I thought it was my last at bat. I couldn't figure out whether he'd thrown the ball or not, so I just swung. And then I didn't know whether I hit the ball or not, so I just took off. And when he pulled into second base, Manny Trio, the Cubs' second baseman, was waiting for me, and he hugged and kissed me. In 2015, Rolling Stone magazine called him baseball's version of the most interesting man in the world. He ran a baseball academy. He conducted instructional clinics. He spoke 5 languages. He performed stand-up comedy, recorded music with his band called Ball Players. Lenny Randall, dead at the age of 75. All righty, that's it for me, guys. I was done. Tomorrow's a Tuesday. That means Suze will be joining us. I'll look forward to it, and I hope you will as well. Have a good day.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.